You're being possessive. I'm seeing other people, she laughed, mocking when I suggested consistent date nights, so I stayed quiet, mirrored her energy, and still let her use my discount to treat her friend. I never expected those words to come from Amber, not after 10 months of what I thought was genuine connection building towards something permanent. I'm Luke, 28, working as a cybersecurity analyst for one of Portland's major tech companies, earning a solid salary protecting corporate networks from digital threats, and I genuinely believed Amber and I were building something real together. Amber was 26, an event planner at a luxury hotel chain downtown, coordinating elaborate weddings and corporate events for Portland's elite, and for the first 7 months, everything between us felt natural, effortless, and deeply connected. We'd established these beautiful weekend routines that I treasured, Saturday mornings wandering through Powell's books, her fingers tracing poetry book spines while I browsed technology sections, then driving out to Forest Park for afternoon walks where she'd point out seasonal wildflowers and I'd explain the complex security protocols that kept our increasingly digital world functioning safely. Sunday evenings meant intimate dinners in the Pearl District, sharing appetizers at upscale restaurants where she described the elaborate wedding themes she was coordinating while I detailed the latest cyber threats I'd successfully neutralized at work. She seemed genuinely fascinated by my career, asking thoughtful questions about encryption algorithms and network security architecture, while I absolutely loved hearing her passion for creating perfect, memorable moments for other people's most important days. The way her eyes lit up when describing a particularly challenging event coordination made me fall deeper each week. But something fundamental shifted around month 7, subtle at first, then increasingly impossible to ignore. She started checking her phone obsessively during our conversations, responding to texts with secretive smiles that never included me in whatever private joke was happening, and her physical presence began feeling distracted even when we were together. Her availability became completely erratic, canceling our established weekend plans at the last minute because of sudden work emergencies that seemed to conveniently happen every time we had something special planned, like the wine tasting tour I'd booked months in advance or the concert tickets I'd surprised her with. When I finally suggested we maintain at least 2 consistent date nights per week to protect our connection amid our increasingly busy professional schedules, her response caught me completely off guard and fundamentally changed how I saw our relationship. You're being possessive. I'm seeing other people socially, and I need space to maintain those relationships without you constantly monitoring my every move like some kind of security system. The casual cruelty in her dismissive laugh as she delivered those words made my stomach drop, but what stung most was how she framed my completely reasonable desire for consistent couple time as controlling, manipulative behavior rather than the normal expectations of someone who wanted to build something meaningful together. I worked for a major tech company that offered substantial employee discounts at various Portland establishments, upscale restaurants throughout the city, popular concert venues like the Crystal Ballroom, trendy wine bars in the Alberta Arts District, even some boutique hotels for weekend getaways, valuable perks that Amber had increasingly started requesting access to for her mysterious social outings with these other people she claimed to be seeing, though she never offered details about who these people were or why our relationship apparently ranked below these undefined social obligations. I decided to conduct what I called the mirror test, stopping all initiation of contact and plans while continuing to provide my employee discount code whenever Amber requested it, curious to see if she would make any effort to maintain what we supposedly had together. The experiment felt fitting for someone in cybersecurity. I wanted to observe her actual behavior patterns when the emotional labor burden shifted entirely to her, treating our relationship like a system I was monitoring for genuine functionality versus surface-level performance. For 3 weeks, I maintained complete radio silence on my end, not texting good morning messages, not suggesting weekend plans, not calling to check how her day went, essentially removing myself as the driving force behind our connection to see what remained when I stopped being the primary relationship architect. The results were devastatingly clear. Amber showed absolutely zero initiative for dates, meaningful conversation, or genuine emotional connection, but she continued requesting my discount codes with the same frequency as before, sometimes multiple times per week for expensive Portland restaurants and entertainment venues. Her requests came through like automated notifications. Hey, can I get the discount code for Le Pigeon tonight? Or, need the Crystal Ballroom code for tomorrow's show, thanks. With no additional context about who she was dining with or what concerts she was attending, with these mysterious social connections that apparently took priority over our relationship. My coworker and roommate Derek, who worked in Portland's hospitality industry as a sommelier at several high-end establishments, began casually mentioning that he'd been noticing Amber around town during his shifts at various restaurants and wine bars. Dude, isn't your girlfriend that blonde event planner who comes in with the tall guy with the expensive camera? Derek asked one evening while we were preparing dinner in our shared apartment. She's been at 3 different places I've worked this month, always with the same dude, and they definitely don't act like just friends. Derek had connections throughout Portland's tight-knit food and beverage scene, working shifts at multiple establishments to build his portfolio toward opening his own wine bar. And his observations carried weight because he understood the social dynamics of Portland's dining culture. He described seeing Amber and this mysterious man at intimate corner tables, sharing desserts, holding hands across tables, engaging in the kind of close physical proximity that definitely suggested romantic involvement rather than casual friendship. The man Derek described was a freelance photographer named Troy who specialized in lifestyle and travel content for social media influencers, someone who fit perfectly with Amber's increasing focus on curating her online image and her apparent desire for a more Instagram-worthy lifestyle than what our stable, authentic relationship provided. Derek's industry connections meant he witnessed this pattern across multiple venues over several weeks, giving me a comprehensive picture of Amber's alternative social life that she was funding partially through my corporate benefits while telling me I was being possessive for wanting basic relationship consistency and priority in her schedule. I began systematically documenting Amber's lies against her social media posts, discovering she was living a complete double life that was partially funded by my employee discounts while she maintained elaborate deceptions about her whereabouts and relationship status. My cybersecurity training had taught me the importance of evidence collection and pattern recognition, so I started taking screenshots of her Instagram stories and cross-referencing them with the times she claimed to be working late hotel events or attending mandatory industry networking functions. The discrepancies were absolutely staggering. She would text me at 7 p.m. claiming to be stuck in an emergency wedding planning session with demanding clients, then post Instagram stories 2 hours later from intimate wine tastings in the Columbia River Gorge with Troy, often at venues where she'd specifically requested my corporate discount codes earlier that same week. One particularly egregious example occurred when she told me she had to work a Saturday evening corporate gala that required her full attention and wouldn't allow personal phone use. Yet her Instagram showed a romantic sunset dinner at Multnomah Falls Lodge with Troy, complete with couples poses and champagne toasts that she'd captioned with heart emojis and perfect weekend vibes with my adventure buddy. I'd provided the discount code for that exact restaurant just 3 days earlier when she claimed she was taking an important client there for a business dinner to discuss a potential wedding contract. The pattern became impossible to ignore once I started paying attention. Every discount code request coincided with a romantic outing with Troy that she later documented on social media while maintaining completely different narratives to me about work obligations and social responsibilities. The most shocking revelation came when I discovered that Amber had been using my employee discount to book romantic weekend getaways at competing hotels for herself and Troy, essentially making me an unwitting financial contributor to her affair while she told me that overnight trips were impossible due to her demanding work schedule. She'd requested access to my company's partner hotel discounts for what she claimed were site visits for potential wedding venues, but were actually weekend retreats where she and Troy created content for his photography portfolio and her lifestyle blog. I found evidence of at least 4 different weekend trips over 2 months. Romantic stays at boutique hotels along the Oregon coast, wine country retreats in the Willamette Valley, mountain lodge getaways near Mount Hood, all documented extensively on both their social media accounts with romantic captions about finding hidden gems and living life to the fullest, while she told me she was too busy with work commitments to plan any overnight trips together. The financial irony was devastating. I was essentially subsidizing the very relationship that was replacing mine, providing the economic foundation for romantic experiences she claimed were impossible to have with me due to time and budget constraints, yet somehow she found both the time and money when Troy was involved. At a cybersecurity networking event in downtown Portland, I unexpectedly encountered Troy himself, who assumed I was just another casual acquaintance since Amber had apparently described me as a possessive ex-coworker who helped her get discounts sometimes, rather than her actual boyfriend of 10 months. The networking event was at the Portland Art Museum, focused on digital security for creative professionals, and Troy was there representing several local influencers he worked with who needed guidance on protecting their online content and personal information. When someone introduced us, Troy's immediate response was casual recognition. "Oh, you're Luke. Amber mentioned you work in tech and sometimes hook her up with restaurant deals." The way he said it suggested he viewed me as a peripheral figure in Amber's life, someone who provided occasional favors but held no real significance in her social circle or romantic landscape. I maintained my composure and played along, curious to see how much truth I could extract from this conversation without revealing what I actually knew about their relationship dynamics. Troy readily shared details about their connection, describing how they'd met through Portland's creative community when Amber hired him to photograph one of her hotel's promotional events, and how their professional relationship had quickly evolved into something more personal and exciting. "She's amazing, you know? Really knows how to live life to the fullest. Not like these boring corporate types who just work and save money without actually experiencing anything meaningful," Troy said, apparently unaware that his description of boring corporate types applied directly to me. He revealed that Amber had been telling elaborate stories about me being an unstable former colleague who couldn't accept their professional relationship had ended, while simultaneously portraying herself as completely single and available to Portland's creative dating scene. According to Troy's version of events, I was someone who'd become uncomfortably attached during a brief period when we worked together on hotel security systems, and who now couldn't understand appropriate professional boundaries, occasionally reaching out with offers of restaurant discounts as a way to maintain contact she didn't particularly want. The conversation revealed that Amber had been compartmentalizing her social circles across Portland's tight-knit creative and tech communities, maintaining completely different narratives about her relationship status to different groups of people depending on what served her interests in each context. Troy genuinely believed he was Amber's primary romantic partner, while I was operating under the assumption that I held that role despite our recent difficulties, and apparently there were other men in her social circle who might have been operating under entirely different assumptions about their significance in her life. The sophistication of her deception was actually impressive from a strategic standpoint. She'd managed to maintain multiple conflicting relationships across overlapping social networks in a city where everyone seemed to know everyone else, creating elaborate backstories and justifications that allowed her to extract maximum benefit from each connection while preventing any of us from comparing notes or recognizing the broader pattern of manipulation she was orchestrating. Derek's connections throughout Portland's hospitality industry proved more valuable than I'd anticipated when he discovered that Amber had been violating her luxury hotel's strict conflict of interest policies by using competitor discounts for personal gain while officially representing her employer at industry events and professional networking functions. The revelation came during one of Derek's shifts at a high-end wine bar in the Pearl District, where he overheard Amber bragging to Troy about how she'd figured out ways to experience Portland's most exclusive dining scene without paying full price, essentially turning her professional relationships into personal financial advantages. Derek, who understood the serious ethical implications of hospitality industry professionals using competitor benefits while representing their own companies, discreetly mentioned this information to a mutual friend who worked in hotel management, knowing that such behavior could constitute grounds for immediate termination in an industry built on trust and professional integrity. When hotel management learned about the extensive discount abuse and potential ethical violations through their own internal investigation triggered by anonymous reports, they discovered a pattern of questionable professional conduct that extended far beyond my corporate discounts. Amber had apparently been accepting personal gifts from wedding vendors, using hotel resources for private events, and claiming personal expenses as business costs on her company credit card, creating a comprehensive picture of someone who viewed her professional position as a vehicle for personal enrichment rather than genuine career development. The investigation revealed that she'd been using competitor hotel discounts not just for personal romantic getaways, but also for hosting clients at rival establishments while claiming these meetings as legitimate business expenses on her company reports, essentially double billing for entertainment costs while undermining her own employer's competitive position in Portland's luxury hospitality market. Amber was placed on immediate administrative leave while the investigation continued, and suddenly she found herself facing potential termination from the career she'd spent years building, all because she couldn't resist exploiting every available resource for personal gain without considering the professional consequences. With her income threatened and her professional reputation under scrutiny, Amber began desperately calling me for emotional support and financial help, suddenly claiming that our relationship had been complicated but real, and that she'd made terrible mistakes in how she'd handled our connection. "Luke, I know I messed up, but I need someone who actually cares about me right now," she said during a late-night phone call, her voice shaking with genuine panic about her professional future. "Everyone else in my life just wants something from me, but you were always different. You actually wanted to build something meaningful together." The irony was devastating. She was reaching out to the person she dismissed as possessive and boring, the same person whose corporate benefits she'd exploited to fund her affair, now positioned as her most reliable source of emotional and potentially financial support during the crisis she'd created through her own unethical behavior. After being terminated from her hotel position and losing Troy, who ended their relationship when he learned about the extent of her deception and professional misconduct, Amber requested a meeting with me at a coffee shop in the Alberta Arts District, claiming she needed to apologize and explain everything that had happened between us. I agreed to meet her, partly out of curiosity about what explanation she could possibly offer for months of lies and manipulation, and partly because I wanted to hear her acknowledge the reality of what she'd done to our relationship and my trust. She looked genuinely devastated when I arrived at the coffee shop, her usual polished appearance replaced by someone who clearly hadn't been sleeping well, wearing casual clothes instead of her typical designer outfits, and carrying herself with none of the confident energy that had initially attracted me to her. "Luke, thank you for agreeing to see me," she began, her voice shaking slightly as she wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she needed the warmth. "I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I needed to tell you the truth about everything." She tearfully confessed that she had felt trapped by my stability and reliability, explaining that our relationship had begun to feel too serious and permanent for someone who wasn't ready to commit to the kind of future I was clearly planning for us. When Troy started paying attention to me, it felt exciting and spontaneous in a way that scared me about what I was missing by being with someone so settled and focused on building something long-term, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I convinced myself that you were too good for me, that I didn't deserve someone who actually planned for the future and treated me like I mattered, so I started sabotaging what we had instead of just being honest about my fears." She revealed that she'd used me as emotional and financial security while pursuing excitement with Troy, knowing that I would always be there as a backup plan if her adventure didn't work out the way she'd hoped. "I thought I could have both, the stability you offered and the thrill Troy represented, without realizing that I was destroying the most genuine thing in my life," she said, her voice breaking completely. "When Troy found out about you and how I'd been lying to both of you, he told me I was manipulative and selfish, and he was absolutely right." The conversation continued for over an hour, with Amber laying out the full scope of her deception and begging me to give our relationship another chance, promising that losing everything had taught her to value what really mattered. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm asking anyway because I finally understand that what we had was real love, not just convenience," she pleaded, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "Everyone else in my life disappears when things get difficult, but you're here listening to me even after everything I did wrong." When she finished explaining and apologizing, I sat quietly for a long moment, processing everything she'd said and considering how to respond to someone who had fundamentally misunderstood both our relationship and my character throughout our entire time together. I received a promotion to senior cybersecurity analyst with a substantial salary increase just 2 weeks after my final conversation with Amber, and used the opportunity to relocate to a better apartment in Portland's trendy Hawthorne district, finally living in the kind of space I'd always wanted but had been saving money to afford while subsidizing someone else's lifestyle. The new position came with increased responsibilities protecting critical infrastructure for multiple Fortune 500 companies, work that felt meaningful and challenging in ways that reminded me why I'd chosen this career path in the first place. With my significantly improved financial situation, I adopted a rescue golden retriever named Bite from the Oregon Humane Society, giving me the companionship I'd been missing while teaching me about unconditional loyalty, something that felt particularly valuable after experiencing the opposite in my relationship with Amber. I started a weekend tech professional group focused on exploring Portland's outdoor recreation opportunities, combining my love of nature with networking opportunities that felt genuine rather than transactional, attracting people who shared similar values around work-life balance and authentic connection. Additionally, I began volunteering at a local coding boot camp for underprivileged youth, teaching cybersecurity fundamentals to teenagers who reminded me why I'd fallen in love with technology in the first place: its power to create opportunities and solve real problems rather than just generate corporate profits. At a volunteer appreciation dinner hosted by the Coding Bootcamp, I met Emma, a marine biologist who worked at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, developing conservation programs for endangered Pacific Northwest marine species. We discovered an immediate shared passion for environmental conservation and outdoor adventures, spending our first conversation discussing the intersection of technology and environmental protection while planning a weekend trip to explore tide pools along the Oregon coast. Emma appreciated my methodical approach to planning adventures, seeing it as thoughtfulness rather than control, and I loved her scientific curiosity about the natural world and her genuine enthusiasm for protecting it for future generations. Our connection felt effortless and authentic in ways that reminded me what healthy relationships were supposed to feel like: two people choosing to build something together rather than one person trying to extract value from the other. Walking away from Amber with my dignity intact had opened doors to a life perfectly aligned with my values and attracted people who genuinely appreciated the qualities she dismissed as boring or possessive, proving that the right person would treasure exactly what the wrong person had rejected.